and not for the nation only, but also to gather into one the children of God who were scattered abroad. The threat of human trafficking is real. It entails human misery and degradation on a massive scale. Steps to combat the scourge must be equal to the scale of the threat if we are to measure up to the standards of simple human dignity that God and our humanity demand of us. According to the Child Protection Action Plan for the World Cup, an estimated 247,000 children in South Africa are now working in forced labor, including prostitution. It is civil society as a whole that must step up to the plate. And it is now doing this also in the form of the Stop Human Trafficking campaign in Southern Africa. Human trafficking is about much more than just a list of these statistics that seek to measure the tragic horror of human beings robbed of their liberty and the trauma of people that might otherwise have grown to experience health, happiness, and the fulfillment of their God-given potential. It's far too easy to lose the plight of the defenseless within the overarching complexity of this worldwide challenge. The plight, for instance, of little Ntato. Lesotho-born Ntato was brought to South Africa at age 3 by a woman she knew simply as Granny. 5 years later, her granny sold her into sexual slavery. The woman who bought her was running a sex ring that police are still investigating. Ntato was rescued just 3 months ago by a social worker who brought her to the Amazing Grace Children's Home near Johannesburg. The people at the Amazing Grace home explain Ntato's story and say that her parents probably had no idea that the granny would sell their daughter. That granny doesn't have children, so she keeps asking people, "Can you give me your child so she can stay with me?" She has a good house, so people trust in her. Even their own families sell these girls. It's the people that you know that traffic the children.
Yeah, the child is very traumatized. I don't know how to put it because, if a young person goes through this, a young child doesn't forget everything that they go through. Sometimes you'll see with the anger towards the other children, you see that the child still have got frustration.
Ntato is just one of thousands of similar victims, and her story emphasizes concerns pending the 2010 Soccer World Cup in South Africa, and particularly because of the unparalleled opportunities it may offer national and international criminals who are likely to be drawn by the economic pull of that great event. The Stop Human Trafficking campaign in Southern Africa is working to raise awareness and sensitize the public on the ills of human trafficking, build the capacity of religious institutions and leaders in countering the practice, and to facilitate the support to victims through safe spaces.
It is really the issue of poverty, issue of unemployment. In some places, it's about political instability. Now we're heading for 2010 World Cup. Reports have been just overwhelming about children disappearing, especially in Gauteng. And that has raised some alarm and concern. And as churches, we have thought, let us stand up and address the issue. Let us engage the community. Let us talk about the dangers of being trafficked. Let us raise awareness. Let us build capacity to protect the children. Let us call for the law enforcement agencies to educate police so that they become aware and to take seriously stories of human trafficking and arrest, prosecute. Because at the moment we don't think they're well trained. The issue though is what happens before and during. But after the World Cup has come and gone, that's when the challenges become massive for the churches, because these kids are almost mentally destroyed and need to be cared for. And so part of our strategy is to try and stop it in the first instance, raise awareness, but afterwards care for them, bring them to some home where they can be socialized back into communities.
The International Organization for Migration provides the following definition of human trafficking. Human trafficking is a form of modern-day slavery. It is rooted in poverty, lack of opportunities, gender discrimination, social and political violence, and demand for services. Oftentimes, victims are lured away from their homes with promises of good jobs. Instead, they're forced into dangerous, illegal, or abusive work. A United Nations protocol provides the following definition. Trafficking in persons shall mean the recruitment, transportation, transfer, harboring, or receipt of persons by means of the threat or use of force or other forms of coercion, of abduction, of fraud, of deception, of the abuse of power or receiving of payments or benefits to achieve the consent of a person having control over another person for the purpose of exploitation. Exploitation shall include, at a minimum, the exploitation of the prostitution of others or other forms of sexual exploitation, forced labor or services, slavery or practices similar to slavery, servitude, or the removal of organs.
Trafficking, it's more money than the cocaine. People don't talk about it. Neighbors never talk about it. And it happens right in the family. And the bad part of that is because the mothers are not earning, they're not working. So the only breadwinner is the person that abused the child in the house, money, power, and everything. So the mother will even go and drop the case. How can you find out? It's about they sleeping a lot, they eat a lot, they don't associate themselves with anybody, and you can see some of them, they don't even like to wash. They don't really like to go and have a bath. It can be a boy or a girl, it's the same. Or people cannot wait for organs, and they can have organs. So you can get a heart, you can get kidneys.
New Life Center is a non-profit organization that rehabilitates women and children who are commercially sexually exploited and trafficked in South Africa. I think now that the World Cup is just around the corner, a lot of young girls are being recruited, especially from rural areas. So when we are doing outreach, it's very depressing. It's very difficult because of the drug and the pimp. Most of them, they come to Johannesburg because Johannesburg, that is a place for gold. It's where dreams, are being fulfilled. You'll see a 12-year-old looking for clients, and then the pimp is just looking after this girl. It's sad.
The national campaign against human trafficking, with particular emphasis on the 2010 World Cup, is supported by a wide range of religious and other organizations, which include, amongst many others, the Anglican Church's Hope Africa, the Evangelical Lutheran Church in Southern Africa, Churches United Against HIV and AIDS in Eastern and Southern Africa, and the Helsinki Deaconess Institute of Finland.
Poverty should never be an excuse to denigrate the sanctity of human life. Both the traffickers and the victims need to be rescued from that screwed thinking, because human life cannot be measured in terms of the possession it has. And as a Christian, I will say it also contradicts the mission of Jesus Christ, who came that they may have life and have it more abundantly. Not this kind of exploitation. I can feed myself by using my hands to be skilled and using my brain not to allow my body and my life to resign to fate.
In 2007, marking the 200-year anniversary for the abolition of slavery, The United Nations indicated that approximately 800,000 persons are trafficked across the world's country borders each year. Trafficking in persons is organized crime with a total worldwide market value estimated at $32 billion. Trafficking in persons occurs internally in South Africa, either from city to city or from rural area to urban area and across provinces. It has been identified that the big cities like Cape Town, Durban and Johannesburg are the receiving areas, while the small towns in South Africa are the sending areas. The International Labour Organization estimates that over 12 million persons per annum worldwide are enticed, entrapped, transported and transferred to enforced labour environments. 80% of the trafficked persons worldwide are women and children, and 50% of the children are minors. Human traffickers prey on the social challenges and human hardships caused by poverty, unemployment, inadequate education, and political instability. The International Organization for Migration says that at least 1,000 women are trafficked into South Africa from neighboring countries for sexual exploitation each year. But not only women are vulnerable. The list of vulnerable persons includes young girls sold by their families, children drugged and forced to fight as soldiers, men bonded, chained in labor on mines and farms, women enslaved in quarries and households. Part of the challenge lies in the fact that South Africa does not have a legal definition of human trafficking. However, depending on the circumstances of a particular case, there are a number of offences in terms of which people suspected of being involved in the trafficking of persons for the purposes of sexual exploitation may be charged. Many national and international organizations have been established and are pooling their resources through various protocols and agreements to fight the scourge of human trafficking. In the time available, let's mention just two of these: the Palermo Protocol and South Africa's Sexual Offences and Community Affairs Unit, or SOCA. South Africa has signed and ratified the United Nations Convention Against Transnational Organized Crime and the Protocol to Prevent, Suppress and Punish Trafficking in Persons, especially women and children, which came into operation in 2003. The Palermo Protocol obliges member states to criminalize trafficking, to provide measures to protect and assist victims, train law enforcement and inform and educate victims, potential victims, and the general public, cooperate with each other and civil society. SOCA's mandate in dealing with the prevention and reduction of sexual offences through effective prosecutions has the following objectives: audit the strategies being implemented against human trafficking where they exist, identify the stakeholders involved in this field, initiate a discussion of the gaps in preventative strategies, assess the impact of the absence of usable and accurate data, and explore how reliable information can be obtained. Determine what the various role players have been able to do thus far within the limitations of almost non-existent policies and legal frameworks, and examine the pros and cons of fast-tracking interim legislation. Religious leaders have endorsed a plan to use the Soccer World Cup to step up the campaign to stop human trafficking in Southern Africa and further abroad. The Stop Human Trafficking campaign in Southern Africa wants to raise awareness and sensitize the public on the ills of human trafficking, build the capacity of religious institutions and leaders in countering the practice, and to facilitate the support of victims through safe havens.
2010, exciting as it is, the World Cup issue in this year is going to leave us with serious challenges that we cannot overlook. We would need to pull together all the resources available and see how best we protect our children. And if those who have fallen victim come to our attention, we must adopt them and bring them into our homes and help them to socialize back into the communities.
It is a basic Christian tenet that it is those who are vulnerable amongst us that most need our help. Society must act, lest they say of us also that we are like children sitting in the marketplace and calling to one another. We played the flute for you, and you did not dance. We sang a dirge, and you did not weep, for you are all children of the light, children of the day. We are not of the night or of the darkness.